Welcome to the TOEFL Listening section. In this part, you will hear one or more conversations in an academic or campus context, such as a discussion between a student and a professor, or between two students. You may take notes while listening. Listen to part of a conversation. You will hear it only once, so listen carefully. After the conversation, you will answer questions about what you heard. Some questions will ask you about main ideas and details. Others will ask about implied meaning, speaker attitude, or how ideas relate to one another. Use both what is stated and what is implied to answer.
Good afternoon, Professor Hale. Thanks for meeting with me during office hours. I am working on a comparative paper on proportional representation and first past the post, and I need help clarifying the main trade-offs.
Good afternoon, Anna. That sounds like a solid topic. Proportional representation and first past the post represent two very different approaches to translating votes into seats. Where do you want to begin?
Maybe with definitions. I understand first past the post is a single-member plurality system, but can you explain the practical implications for party systems and representation?
Sure. In first past the post or single-member plurality, each electoral district elects one representative, and the candidate with the most votes wins, even if they have less than a majority. This tends to favor larger parties and often produces single-party majority governments. It also creates a geographic link between representatives and constituents, which can strengthen local accountability.
So that would be like the United Kingdom or Canada, right?
Exactly. Both use single-member plurality systems, which historically led to two dominant parties, although Canada in recent decades has seen more fragmentation. This pattern is predicted by Duverger's law, which links plurality systems to two-party outcomes.
And proportional representation aims to match the percentage of seats with the percentage of votes.
Yes. In list proportional representation, voters select a party, and seats are allocated to parties based on their share of the vote. Methods like D'Hondt or Son-Log determine how seats are distributed among party lists. The result is greater proportionality and typically more parties in parliament.
Could you give a concrete example of how D'Hondt affects smaller parties?
D'Hondt slightly advantages larger parties relative to pure proportionality because of the divisor series used in allocation. Saint-Log is more favorable to smaller parties. So two countries using closed-list proportional systems could end up with different party sizes because of the formula and the district magnitude.
District magnitude meaning the number of seats in a district?
Correct. Higher district magnitude increases proportionality because more seats in a district allow smaller vote shares to convert into at least one seat. Conversely, small district magnitude reduces proportionality and can act like a semi-majoritarian system.
What about mixed systems like mixed-member proportional that Germany uses?
Mixed-member proportional, or MMP, combines single-member districts with a compensatory party list to achieve proportionality at the national level. Voters usually have two votes, one for a district candidate and one for a party list. The list seats compensate so that the overall seat share of each party matches its list vote share, subject to thresholds.
Thresholds like 5% to enter parliament.
Yes, thresholds prevent extreme fragmentation by excluding very small parties. Germany has a 5% threshold or 3 constituency wins to get proportional compensation. Thresholds are a design choice, balancing representativeness and governability.
I want to weigh criteria for comparison for my paper. What are the usual criteria scholars use?
Common criteria include proportionality of outcomes, accountability and representation, governability and stability, minority inclusion, and the incentive structure for voters and parties. Each system performs differently on these dimensions.
Could you unpack how accountability differs between the systems?
In single-member plurality, voters have a clear geographic representative to hold accountable, which can strengthen constituency service. In list proportional systems, accountability is often to the party, since lists determine who gets seats. That can weaken individual accountability but strengthen party-based policy coherence.
And what about wasted votes and strategic voting?
Wasted votes are more common in first-past-the-post, since votes for losing candidates or surplus votes for winning candidates do not affect seat allocation. This creates incentives for tactical voting, where supporters back a less preferred but more viable candidate to prevent their least preferred candidate from winning. Proportional systems reduce wasted votes and thus reduce incentives for tactical voting.
How do these systems affect party discipline in coalition governments?
Proportional systems tend to produce multi-party parliaments and therefore coalition governments. That increases negotiation and can lead to more consensual policymaking. However, it can also mean more complex coalition bargaining and potential instability if coalitions are fragile. First-past-the-post often yields single-party governments, which can pass legislation more decisively, but with less cross-party compromise.
Is it fair to say proportional systems are more representative but sometimes less stable?
That is a generalization that holds often but not always. Some proportional systems have very stable coalition arrangements like the Netherlands or Scandinavia. Stability depends on party system fragmentation, institutional rules like thresholds, and political culture. So representation and stability are related but not perfectly inversely correlated.
You mentioned Duverger earlier when we talked about party systems. Could you briefly explain its mechanism?
Duverger highlights mechanical and psychological effects. Mechanically, plurality voting converts votes into seats in a way that disadvantages small parties. Psychologically, voters anticipate this and prefer not to waste votes, so they shift to larger parties. Over time, this produces fewer parties in plurality systems.
That helps. For my paper, I want to include case studies. Which cases would demonstrate the clearest contrasts?
A classic contrast is the United Kingdom or United States for single-member plurality versus the Netherlands or Israel for list proportional systems. Germany is a good case for MMP, and Japan provides an example of mixed systems with parallel voting, which does not compensate to ensure proportionality. Including these will illustrate different outcomes on proportionality and party structure.
I think I will compare the UK and the Netherlands and include Germany as a hybrid example. Any advice on metrics to quantify proportionality?
Use indices like the Gallagher Index to measure disproportionality. Also report effective number of parties for both votes and seats using Laxo-Tagapera formulas. Show district magnitude, threshold levels, and seat allocation formulas to contextualize the numbers.
That is very concrete. One last question about voter influence. Could you comment on minority representation under each system?
Proportional systems allow smaller and concentrated minority groups to gain representation more easily if their vote share passes district or national thresholds. Plurality systems can marginalize dispersed minorities, but may help concentrated minorities that form majorities in specific districts. Representation of women, for example, often improves with party list quotas in proportional systems.
Great. I feel ready to draft the outline. Thank you for the guidance and the case study suggestions.
You are welcome. Send me a draft and we can discuss empirical measures and references for methods like D'Hondt and the Gallagher Index in more detail.
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
Duverger highlights mechanical and psychological effects. Mechanically, plurality voting converts votes into seats in a way that disadvantages small parties. Psychologically, voters anticipate this and prefer not to waste votes, so they shift to larger parties.
This concludes the conversation portion. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.